They spotted something impossible. Out beyond the dark edge of the galaxy, where no one should travel, a small signal appeared on the scanners of a patrol ship. The signal was weak, almost like a whisper in the silence of space. At first, the crew thought it was only noise. Their computers told them it was nothing, just a random echo. But then the signal grew stronger, like a heartbeat calling from the void. The patrol ship belonged to the Kether Empire, one of the oldest and proudest powers of the Galactic Council. The captain, an old and sharp alien named Varthus, leaned forward in his chair as his black eyes stared at the glowing screen. He had seen many strange things during his years in space, but this was different. "Lock the signal. Trace it," he ordered. His crew obeyed quickly. The scanners showed something unbelievable. A vessel was moving slowly between the frozen asteroids of a dead system. The ship did not match any known design. It was small, simple, and old-fashioned, like something that belonged in a museum, not in deep space. "This cannot be," Varthus whispered. One of his officers turned in his chair, his scaled skin pale. "Sir, it looks like human design." The bridge went silent. Even the sound of machinery seemed to stop. Humans, the word carried weight in every star system. For centuries, humans were considered too young, too weak, too late to join the great powers of the galaxy. They'd only been noticed a few decades ago, struggling on their little blue planet. The Galactic Council had allowed them to survive but never trusted them. And above all, it was known humans did not have deep space vessels capable of reaching this far. So how could a human ship appear here, beyond the reach of even the oldest empires? Varthus narrowed his eyes. "Put it on screen." The image appeared. The vessel was gray and battered, with markings almost erased by time. It had no advanced shields, no glowing energy cores, no alien technology. Looked fragile, broken, and yet it was real. "Is this a trick?" one officer asked. "No trick," Varthus said coldly, "but it should not exist." The crew studied the vessel in silence. There was no communication, no response to hails. The ship drifted slowly, its engines barely alive. And yet, something about it was wrong. Its design was ancient, as if it belonged to a time long before humans were even known to the Council. Finally, Varthus spoke. "Prepare a boarding party. I want answers." And a smaller craft detached from the patrol ship and glided toward the silent vessel. The boarding team carried weapons, though they did not expect resistance. The human ship looked abandoned. When the hatch was forced open, stale air rushed out, heavy with dust and silence. The corridors were narrow, filled with wires and metal plates. Lights flickered weakly, like the last breaths of a dying star. The team moved carefully, their steps echoing in the emptiness. Then they found something that froze their blood. Inside the control room, a figure sat strapped to the captain's chair. A human. His body was dry and lifeless, long dead, but his eyes were still open. He stared into nothing, as if watching something beyond time. The team reported back to Varthus. A human corpse. "But sir, it looks centuries old." Varthus frowned. Centuries? That was impossible. Humans had not even reached the stars centuries ago, were still fighting with simple rockets and machines on their little planet. And yet here was proof. "Search the ship," Varthus commanded. "Bring me everything." The boarding team continued deeper. They found journals written in crude human script. They found strange devices, not alien but human-made, using old metals and wires. It was as if this ship had left Earth hundreds of years ago and somehow crossed the impossible distances of space long before humans even had the technology. "How did they get here?" an officer whispered. No one could answer. When the data was brought back to the patrol ship, Varthus studied it for hours. He read the human journals with the help of translation machines. The words shocked him. The journals spoke of a mission launched secretly from Earth long before humans joined the Council. A desperate journey sent out with little hope, meant to carry humanity's name into the stars. The captain wrote of endless darkness, of systems never seen before, of fear and of something else. He wrote of being followed. The last entry was only a single line, scratched into the page with shaking. "Hands, they are here." Varthus leaned back in his chair, cold fear running through his veins. Who were they? What had this lone human ship found in the dark, and why had the Council never known about it? For the first time in many years, Varthus felt something. He hated unease, because if humans had reached this far, centuries ago, then maybe everything the Council thought about Earth was wrong. Maybe humans were not weak, not late. Maybe they had always been here, hiding their true face, waiting, and as the patrol ship carried the dead human vessel back toward Council space, none of them knew the truth. None of them saw the shadow that drifted silently beyond the asteroids. It was watching something else was out there, and it was not human. The Kether patrol ship moved slowly through the black sea of space, dragging the human vessel behind it. The strange old ship looked fragile, like it would break apart at any moment, yet something about it made the crew restless. No one spoke much. The corridors of the Kether ship were too quiet, as if the silence of the human vessel had followed them inside. Captain Varthus sat in his chair, staring at the journal entries displayed on the screen. The words of the human captain repeated. In his mind, they are here. He hated not knowing. He hated mysteries. For the Kether Empire, everything had rules, everything could be measured, recorded, and explained. But this made no sense. "Report," Varthus said finally. An officer looked up from his console. "The human vessel shows signs of deep radiation damage. Its engines are old fusion types, outdated by centuries. Sir, it should not have traveled this far, not with that technology." Varthus growled softly, and yet it did. The officer nodded uneasily. "Yes, Captain." The rest of the crew whispered in private corners. They spoke of ghosts, of cursed ships, of humans hiding secrets. Some believed the dead man inside was no corpse but a warning. Some believed the Council itself might have known and kept it hidden. The more they talked, the heavier the silence grew. Then, 3 days into the return journey, the alarms sounded. Unidentified contact. The crew snapped to their stations. On the main screen, a shape appeared. It was not large, but it moved with impossible speed, weaving between asteroids like a predator in the dark. Its surface reflected no light, making it almost invisible. Varthus leaned forward. "What is that?" "No match in the database," an officer said quickly. "It is unknown." The shape slowed, keeping its distance. Watching, the crew felt something in their bones. Pressure, a weight. As if the void itself had turned its gaze upon them. The patrol ship sent a signal. No answer came. The unknown craft simply moved, closer, then stopped again, like a shadow stalking prey. "It followed us," whispered one officer. Varthus's eyes narrowed. The human captain's words came back. "They are here." Could this be what he meant? The alien captain made a choice. "Raise shields. Prepare weapons. We will not be hunted." The crew obeyed, but unease filled their movements. No one wanted to fire first. No one wanted to discover what that shadow could do. Hours passed. The unknown craft remained, never attacking, never leaving. Simply watched. On the 4th day, something worse happened. The human corpse moved. It began with, "A simple report from the guards watching the vessel, sir." I swear his hand twitched. Varthus almost dismissed it, till the next report came, this time with video proof. The dead human's head had turned slightly in the captain's chair. His lifeless eyes now stared directly at the camera. The crew panicked. Some demanded the body be destroyed at once. Others believed it was only a trick of decompression or ship movement. But then the systems on the human vessel activated by themselves. The old engines coughed to life, though no one had touched them. Lights flickered across the panels, forming strange patterns. The journals on board turned their pages without wind, and a signal was sent. Varthus saw it clearly on the scanners. The human vessel was broadcasting a message into deep space. Not words, not images, just coordinates. "What coordinates?" Varthus demanded. The officer's face was pale. "Captain, it points to a system on the very edge of the void. Past council maps, past past anything known. Varthus clenched his fists. Was this what the human had written about? Was this the place where they waited? Before he could decide what to do, the shadow ship made its move. It surged forward, faster than any vessel they had ever seen. The Kether patrol ship locked weapons, but in a blink, the shadow was already gone, reappearing on the opposite side, as if space itself had bent. "It's playing with us," an officer whispered. The crew fired. Beams of plasma tore through the void, but the shadow craft slipped between them, untouched. It did not return fire. It did not even try. It simply circled them again and again, as if testing, as if watching. Then the human corpse sent one last signal. This time it was words. Broken, distorted, but clear enough to freeze every soul on board. "They are not gone." The speakers echoed with the voice, though the man had been dead for centuries. Varthus stood slowly. His black eyes stared at the drifting human ship, then at the shadow stalking them. For the first time in his long career, he felt truly afraid. If humans had met this in the dark, if humans had kept this secret, then the entire galaxy was in danger. Because if they were not gone, then they were still out there, watching, waiting. And now the Kether had found them too. The patrol ship drifted through the endless dark, pulling the cursed human vessel behind it. Fear spread like poison through the crew. No one wanted to look at the dead human anymore. No one wanted to hear the old voice that had spoken from lifeless lips. But even in silence, they felt it. The shadow ship was still there. It never left. Their scanners. Always close, always circling, always watching. The Kether crew stopped eating full meals. They whispered only when necessary. Some of them even began to pray, though their people had abandoned old gods centuries ago. Captain Varthus refused to show fear. He walked the bridge with his hands behind his back, eyes cold, voice steady. But inside, a storm grew. He had seen many strange things in his life, but nothing like this. What haunted him most were the coordinates. The dead human's vessel had sent them before the shadow arrived. Point in the galaxy so far out, no star charts marked it, Varthus wondered. If it was a trap, or a warning, or something worse? "Captain," said one officer carefully, "what are your orders?" Varthus looked at the screen where the shadow craft drifted. "We return to Council space. We deliver what we found. Let the High Council decide." The officer hesitated, then nodded, but his eyes betrayed doubt. Everyone on board felt it. Council would not believe them. They would think it was lies, or madness, or worse treason. On the seventh day, the nightmare deepened. The human corpse was gone. The guards swore they never looked away, yet when the ship's cameras replayed, the body simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next moment the chair was empty. The crew searched every corridor of the human vessel. Nothing, not a trace. Some shouted that the dead man was walking again. Others swore he had never been human at all. Varthus silenced them with a roar, but even his voice could not erase the fear in their eyes. Hours later, one of the young officers collapsed on the bridge. His skin was pale, his mouth moving without sound. When medics rushed to him, they froze in horror. The officer was whispering the same words the human corpse had spoken. "They are not gone. They are not gone," Varthus ordered the officer restrained. But soon, two more crew members began whispering the same line. One scratched it on the walls of his cabin until his claws bled. Another repeated it in his sleep, eyes wide open, staring into nothing. The ship was breaking, and still the shadow. Craft followed. Varthus made his decision. "Change course. We go to the coordinates." The bridge went silent. No one argued, but no one approved. They knew it was madness, yet something deep inside told them they had no choice. The human ship had sent the signal for a reason. The shadow was hurting them. The whispers would never stop until they saw what waited there. Days later, they reached the system. There was no star. Only a black void, darker than the space around it. Gravity bent strangely. Time itself seemed heavy. The patrol ship trembled as if afraid. And then they saw it. A structure, floating in the darkness, larger than moons. older than empires. Its surface was broken, covered in scars, but it still pulsed faintly with power. The crew stared at it in silence. It was not natural. It was built by what? No one could say. The shadow craft glided ahead of them and disappeared into the giant structure, as if welcomed home. "Captain," one officer whispered, "what do we do?" Varthes's black eyes stayed locked on the screen. His voice was low, cold, steady. "We follow." The ship edged forward, engines humming nervously. The structure opened, a great gate sliding apart, and the Kether patrol ship entered. Inside was a vast chamber, lit by faint lights that had burned for countless ages. Strange machines drifted silently, older than anything the crew had ever seen. Then the signals began. Not noise, not words, memories. The crew staggered as their minds filled with images not their own. Battles fought in ancient skies.
Ow.
Worlds burned to ash. Armies wiped away like dust. And at the heart of it all, humans, not the weak, fragile race the Council mocked. Not the newcomers everyone dismissed, but humans standing tall, humans fighting side by side with giants, humans facing monsters of shadow and winning. Varthas gripped the arms of his chair, his mind trembling from the visions. Could it be true? Had humans been here before? Had they fought this shadow long ago? The final vision was clear. A human fleet burning, a last stand. Ships exploding in fire as they tried to seal the shadow away inside this structure. A sacrifice. And then darkness. The visions ended. The crew stood silent, gasping, some weeping without reason. Varthas rose slowly. "Now I understand." He looked around at his trembling officers. Humans are not what the Council thinks. They are not late too. The stars, they were here long before us. They fought this shadow when none of us even knew it existed. And they nearly won. The silence was heavy, but then a sound came from deep inside the structure. A sound like something waking, and the lights that had been dead for ages began to turn on. The first light was dim, a pale glow like an old star rising after endless night. Then more lights awakened, spreading across the massive walls of the ancient structure. The crew of the Kether patrol ship froze, staring as the dead place slowly came alive around them. "Captain," an officer whispered, his voice shaking. "We should leave now." But Varthas did not move. His black eyes locked on the screens, watching as systems older than their empire powered up again. Machines shifted, great engines hummed, and strange symbols appeared, glowing on the walls like scars from another age. "This is no ruin," Varthas said quietly. It was only sleeping. The crew felt the weight of his words. Then the visions returned. Stronger this time, sharper, flooding their minds without warning. Screams of soldiers, fire on 1,000 worlds, shadows moving like storms. And humans always. Humans standing against them. The crew staggered, some falling to their knees, clutching their heads. The youngest officer screamed and begged for it to stop. But Varthas gritted his teeth and endured. He saw it clearly now. Humans had been warriors, not victims. They had faced the shadows long before the Council even existed. They had built this prison in the void, a cage, to hold back an enemy that should never be free. But the cage was breaking, Captain. The sensors officer shouted suddenly. Movement inside the structure. The screen showed something vast, shapes stirring in the darkness, unfolding like wings. The shadow ship that had led them here was not alone. Dozens, hundreds emerged from the black, surrounding them, each one sleek, silent, perfect hunters. The crew panicked. Some shouted to flee, others to fight, others only prayed. But Varthas held up his hand. Hold position. The crew froze. Their captain's voice was calm, but his eyes burned with something fierce. If they wanted us dead, Varthas said, we would already be dead. The shadow fleet circled, silent, waiting. Then the human vessels still tied behind the Kether ship moved on its own again. Its engines glowed, its lights flashed in patterns. It was speaking to the shadows. The crew could not understand, but Varthus felt the meaning in his bones. A warning, a plea, a reminder. And then for the first time, the shadows answered, not with words. With sound, a deep, low tone filled the chamber, vibrating through metal and flesh alike. It was not language, but every being on the ship understood. It there, waking. The lights of the structure flared brighter. Ancient machines roared alive, and deep below, something vast began to move. The crew trembled as the scanners tried to measure it, but the numbers made no sense. It was too large, too heavy, too old. What is it?" whispered an officer. Varthus stared at the shifting shadow below. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. "It is what the humans fought, what they tried to lock away." The chamber shook. The ship rattled as gravity bent. Something beyond size, beyond reason, stretched inside the prison. The crew saw glimpses of it through the screens. Not a creature, not a machine, something in between. A living shadow, with eyes like burning stars, claws longer than cities. Its presence crushed them, like their souls were being squeezed. Several crew members fainted. One officer screamed and clawed at his own skin as if trying to tear it off. Varthus stood firm. Though his legs trembled, the human captain's words echoed in his mind. They are here, yes. They had never left. The shadows had waited patient for centuries. The humans had sealed them away, but time had weakened the prison. And now, with the Kether ship's arrival, the cage was opening again. The structure's ancient systems fought back. Lights burned, walls shifted, great machines tried to push the monster down. But it was too weak. Too much time had passed. The shadow roared up. Soundless scream that ripped through the crew's minds, and the human vessel began to break apart. Panels tore away. Wires snapped, and something rose from its broken core. A sphere of light, pure and burning, small but defiant. The crew shielded their eyes. The shadow fleet pulled back. Even the vast monster paused. The sphere spoke, not in words. In memories, the crew saw the human captain again, alive, standing tall. Before the dark, his voice was calm, steady, brave. "To whoever finds this, know the truth. Humanity was here. Humanity fought. Humanity bled. We gave everything to hold them. If you see this, then the cage is failing. And if the cage fails, none of you are safe." The light grew brighter, shaking the walls. The shadow screamed again, "Recoiling." And in that instant, Varthus understood. The humans had not failed. They had bought time. Centuries of time. Enough for new empires, new species, new life to grow. And now the time was over. The cage was breaking. The monster was waking. And the galaxy had no idea, Captain, shouted the officer at the helm, panic in his voice. "What do we do?" Varthus did not answer at once. He stared at the blazing human light, then at the vast shadow writhing below. His heart pounded like a war drum. Finally, he spoke. "We run." The Kether patrol ship turned, engines burning hotter than ever before. The shadows followed, but only for a time. They did not strike. They let the ship flee, as if sending a message with it, as if saying, "Go, warn them, let them know we are coming." And when the ship burst free from the structure and into open space again, every crew member felt the same terrible truth. The war the humans had fought was not over. It had only been waiting. The patrol ship raced through the void, engines screaming as if the vessel itself wanted to escape. The ancient structure and the shadows disappeared behind them, swallowed by the blackness. But even as distance grew, no one felt safe. On the bridge, silence hung heavy. Officers sat stiff in their seats, hands shaking over their controls. They had survived, yes, but survival did not feel like victory. Captain Varthus stood at the center. His eyes locked on the stars ahead. His mind was not on escape. It was on the memory of the light, the human captain's final message. Humanity was. Here, humanity fought. Humanity bled. Varthus could not forget it. He could not deny it. The Council had been wrong. The galaxy had been wrong. Humans were not children. They were survivors of a war older than empires. And now that war was about to begin again. An officer broke the silence. "Captain, should we inform command?" Varthus turned slowly. His face was unreadable, his black eyes cold. "Yes," he said. "The Council must know." But even as he said it, doubt coiled in his chest. The Council, the proud rulers of countless worlds. They hated humans, mocked them, controlled them. Would they even listen? Or would they bury the truth just as they had buried other truths before? The thought gnawed at him. Days passed. The crew avoided the human vessel now, still tied to their ship. No one wanted to touch it. No one wanted to look at it. They said it whispered in the night, though its systems were dead again. Some officers began to dream of the Shadow Fleet. They woke screaming, claiming they saw black ships circling their beds. One even swore the human corpse had returned and was standing in the corner of his cabin. Fear grew, discipline cracked. And still, they pushed toward Council space. On the 12th day, their sensors picked up a signal. "Another ship? Identify," Varthus ordered. The officer's claws trembled on the console. "It is human, Captain." The crew stared in disbelief. "Human ship. Here." Varthus's voice was sharp, on screen. The image appeared. A sleek vessel far newer than the one they had found. Its hull bore markings of Earth's space fleet. This was no ancient ghost. This was living humanity. The human ship hailed them. A voice came through the speakers. "Calm and firm. Kether. Vessel, this is Captain Elias Ward of the United Earth Navy. You have something that belongs to us." The crew looked at each other in shock. Varthus narrowed his eyes. "And what would that be?" "The ship you are dragging behind you," Ward replied. His tone carried steel. "Release it to us immediately." Varthus studied the man on the screen. He was young for a captain, his face sharp, his eyes steady. But there was something in those eyes, something that reminded Varthus of the visions he had seen in the prison. This was not a weak species. "Not anymore? Do you know what it carries?" Varthus asked quietly. Ward's eyes did not move. "More than you." The crew shifted nervously. Varthus's claws tapped the arm of his chair. "We found something inside it. Something dangerous. Something your council never told us." Ward leaned closer, his voice low, deadly serious. "Then you understand why you must let it go. That ship was never meant to be found. Not by you. Not by anyone." For the first time, Varthus felt anger. "You dare command me? Do you think the Kether bow to human orders?" Ward's reply was calm, but it cut like a blade. "If you saw what waits in the dark, then you already know this is not about bowing. This is about survival. Survival means giving us back what we lost." The crew whispered nervously. Varthus felt torn. Every instinct told him to defy this human. But another voice whispered in his mind, the voice of the dead captain. The memory of burning fleets, the truth that had shaken him. Humans had fought this enemy before. Humans had sacrificed everything. Perhaps only humans knew how. "To fight them again, Captain," one of his officers said quietly. "Perhaps we should." The alarm cut him off. A new signal. Dozens of them. The Shadow Fleet had returned. The scanners lit up with shapes pouring out of the void. Black ships surrounded them, faster, closer, hungrier than before. The crew panicked, voices overlapping in fear. Varthus stood tall. His decision came like lightning. "Human captain," he said into the comms, his voice hard. "Fight with us, or we all die here." Ward's eyes burned with grim fire. "Agreed." The two ships turned, side by side. As the shadows closed in, for the first time in history, a Kether warship and a human vessel faced the dark together. The battle began. The void lit up with fire. The first wave of shadow ships came fast, black blades cutting through the stars. Their movement was unnatural, twisting, bending space around them. The Kether crew had never seen anything like it. "Shields at maximum," Varthus roared. The patrol ship shuddered as a dark beam struck their defenses. The shields rippled, almost tearing apart. Officers cried out, but the barrier held barely. The human ship moved swiftly beside them. Its weapons lit the dark with blazing bursts of plasma. Unlike the Kether, the humans did not hesitate. They fired again and again, their shots precise, striking shadow ships and tearing holes through their sleek bodies. One shadow vessel exploded, fragments burning bright before vanishing into nothing. The Kether crew gasped. They had never seen anyone destroy one. Varthus stared at the screen, his voice low. They can be killed. But the shadows did not break. More came, swarming like wolves surrounding both ships. Hold formation, Captain Ward's voice. Cut through the comms. Don't let them split us apart. Varthus gave orders and his crew obeyed. For the first time, Kether and human fought side by side. Their weapons crossed the void together, their shields overlapping, protecting each other against the endless storm. Yet it was not enough. The shadows adapted. Their movements grew faster, sharper. Every time a shadow vessel was destroyed, too, more appeared. The Cathor ship rocked under the blows. Sparks flew from the consoles. Crew members screamed as systems failed. Engines at 60%, shouted one officer. Shields falling. The patrol ship could not last. Then Varthus saw the human ship do something impossible. Captain Ward gave an order, and the vessel dove straight into the swarm. Shadow ships swarmed it, striking again and again, but the human ship twisted, rolled, dodged, answering every blow with fire. It was reckless. It was insane. It was working. Shadow vessels burned one by one under its guns. The Kether crew watched in awe as the humans fought like predators unleashed. They fight like demons. One officer whispered, "No," Varthus said, his voice dark and certain. They fight like those who have done this before. But still, the swarm was endless. Both ships were bleeding, their shields breaking, their hulls cracking. Then, the ancient human vessel, the ghost ship, still tied behind the Kether. Patrol craft came alive again. Its shattered systems glowed with fierce light. Energy surged. From its broken core, flowing through space like a beacon, the shadow fleet froze. Every one of them stopped mid-movement, their weapons silent as if listening. The crew held their breath. On the screens, words formed again. Not spoken, not transmitted. Burned directly into their minds. This is not the battle, this is the warning. The shadows began to move again, this time not to attack, but to retreat. And one by one they pulled back into the dark, vanishing into the void. The battlefield fell silent. The Kether crew slumped in their chairs, gasping, bleeding, shaking. They had survived, but none of them felt victory. Varthus stood tall, though his body trembled. His eyes turned to the human captain on the screen. What just happened? Ward's face was pale, but his voice was steady. You saw it? Us live. That wasn't a battle. That was their message. Varthus's claws dug into the arm of his chair. A message to who? To everyone, Ward said grimly. The shadows are not hiding anymore. They want us to know. The prison is breaking. The war is coming. The bridge went silent. The crew felt the weight of his words. Then Ward leaned closer, his eyes sharp, filled with fire. You must decide, Captain. Will you tell the Council the truth? Or will you let them blind themselves while the galaxy burns? Varthus said nothing. His mind was storming. He thought of the visions of humans burning in the last war of their sacrifice. Thought of the Council, proud, arrogant, blind. Would they listen? They would laugh. They would silence him. But Ward's voice cut through his doubts. If the Council does nothing, humanity will fight again. We will not run. We will not hide. But alone, we cannot win. Varthus stared into the human's eyes. For the first time, he saw not arrogance, not weakness, but a warrior's truth. The shadows had chosen their time. The prison was failing. The galaxy was about to face a storm greater than anything in history. And maybe, just maybe, the only hope is humanity. The ghost ship behind them finally shattered into pieces, its light fading, its purpose fulfilled. The silence it left behind felt heavy, final. Ward's voice was low, almost a whisper. They wanted us to see. Now it's up to us. Varthus closed his eyes. Had spent his life serving the Kether Empire, obeying the Council. But now he faced a choice greater than duty. Protect the truth or protect the galaxy. When he opened his eyes again, they burned with resolve. Then we will tell them, he said. We will tell them all. But deep inside, he knew the truth. The Council would never believe. And when the shadows came, the galaxy would be unprepared. The Kether patrol ship limped into Council space, its hull scarred, its engines weak. Behind it, the human vessel followed like a shadow. The two ships moved together, silent allies after the storm, but inside the patrol ship the crew was restless. They whispered of the shadows, of the visions, of the human message. Some wanted to tell everything. Others wanted to remain silent, fearing the Council's wrath. Captain Varthus sat alone in his chamber, staring at the stars beyond the glass. His thoughts were heavy. The Council, 1,000 voices of power. They hated humans, mocked them, feared them. Now he must tell them that humans were not weak, not late, not children of the stars. He must tell them that humans had faced a war older than empires and almost won. He knew what would happen. They would call him a liar. They would accuse him of treason. Perhaps they would even execute him. But the shadows were coming. He had no choice. The council chamber was vast, a circle of towering seats filled with representatives of dozens of species. The air was thick with arrogance, with politics. Varthus stood in the center, his black eyes sharp, his shoulders squared. Behind him, Captain Ward of Earth stood silent, watching. The council speaker, a tall and ancient being with silver skin, raised a hand. Captain Varthus of the Kether Empire. You requested urgent audience. Speak. Varthus's voice was deep and steady. We have returned from the edge of the void. We found a vessel human in origin, centuries old. It carried a message. The chamber stirred with whispers. A human vessel? Centuries old? Possible, Varthus? Continued. The message was clear. The humans were here before us. They fought an enemy unlike any other. They built a prison to hold it. That prison is breaking. And now the enemy wakes again. Laughter erupted from some council members. Others hissed in disbelief. Humans? One delegate scoffed. They are primitives. They can barely hold their world together. You claim they fought a war before? The council even existed. Another voice, sharp and cruel. This is human propaganda. Lies meant to raise their status. Varthus's eyes burned. I saw it with my own eyes. I fought beside them. The shadows are real. They are coming. Where is your proof? Demanded the speaker. Varthus's claws clenched. He wanted to shout, to force them to see. But before he could answer, Captain Ward stepped forward. His voice was calm. But every word struck like iron. The proof is us. Humanity never asked for the council's approval. We never begged for its mercy while you debated and argued. We fought, we bled, we left warnings for those who would come after. Warnings you now mock. The chamber erupted in anger. Dozens shouted at once, accusations, insults, laughter. But Ward raised his voice, stronger now. You can laugh at us. You can hate us. But when the shadows come, you will remember this day. Will remember that humanity tried to warn you. And when your worlds burn, you will beg for the warriors you dismissed. The chamber shook with rage. Some demanded the humans be silenced. Others called for Varthus's arrest. Guards began to move. Then the lights flickered. The entire chamber fell silent. The screens above the council flashed. Not with council data. It's the same visions the Kether crew had seen. Worlds burning, fleets destroyed, shadows spreading like storms. And humans, fighting, dying, sacrificing, holding the line. The visions poured through every mind in the chamber. Undeniable, unstoppable. The council members screamed, some collapsing under the weight of the memories. When the visions ended, silence returned, silence deeper than any before. Varthus stood tall, his voice like thunder. Now you have seen. The question is not whether it is true. The question is whether you will act. The speaker trembled, his silver skin pale. If this is true, then we are all in danger. Captain Ward's voice was sharp, final. Not if. It is true. The prison is failing. The shadows will come. And when they do, Earth will fight again, with or without you. The council chamber erupted once more, but this time it was not laughter. It was fear. Delegates shouted for armies, for fleets, for defenses. Monarchs spread like fire. Varthus looked at Ward. For the first time in history, the council was afraid of humans. Not because of lies, not because of politics, but because of truth. And in that moment, Varthus realized something darker still. The council was afraid, but fear does not always unite. Fear often divides, and divided, the galaxy would fall. The council chamber remained in chaos long after the visions ended.
Ow.
Malarai, for a while, I'm in fire, fine fire, for a fireman, I buy for fun, for Some shouted to prepare fleets, others demanded isolation, and many argued humans had brought this doom upon the galaxy captain. Ward stood silent, his arms crossed, his face like stone. He had seen this before, fear turning allies into enemies. Humanity had lived through it on Earth. Varthus watched the chamber with cold eyes. He knew the truth now. The council would not unite. They would not prepare. They would argue until the shadows came, and then it would be too late. At last the speaker raised his trembling hand. This council must consider. We cannot trust the words of one Kether ship and one human captain. Until further proof arrives, the council will remain neutral. Ward's voice was low, but it cut through the noise. Neutral? While the shadows wake. Neutral while the galaxy burns? The speaker avoided his gaze. We cannot risk panic. Humanity must return to its world. Kether Empire will stand down. That is the will of the council. The human captain's eyes burned with fury. Then the council is already dead. The chamber roared with outrage. Guards moved forward, weapons ready, but Varthus stepped in front of Ward. No, Varthus said, his voice carrying like thunder. The council may be blind, but I am not. I saw the truth. I will not let my people die in silence. The chamber gasped. A Kether, captain defying the council. Impossible. Ward looked at him with a flicker of respect. That night, Varthus returned. To his ship in silence, his crew awaited him, their eyes filled with questions. He spoke only one sentence. The council will do nothing. We must decide for ourselves. The crew exchanged fearful glances, but one by one they nodded. They had seen the shadows. They had felt the visions. They knew their captain was right. Days passed. Rumors spread through the galaxy of the vision in the council chamber. Some believed, most did not. Many called it human lies, a trick to gain power. But out on the edge of space, the shadows stirred. Their ships multiplied, their whispers grew louder, and their prison cracked wider. On the bridge of the human vessel, Captain Ward stood with his officers. His voice was calm, but every word carried fire. Earth will fight. Alone if we must. But we will not fall, Varthus' voice answered. Through the comes you will not fight alone, not while I breathe. The two captains looked at each other across the void. Enemies yesterday, allies today, perhaps the only hope tomorrow. and then the stars themselves trembled. The scanners lit up. A wave of shadow ships, larger than ever before, pouring out of the void like a tide. Dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands. The war had begun. Both crews stared at the endless swarm in silence. No fleet could stop this. No empire could stand alone. Ward's voice was steady, unbroken. Then we send the message, not to the Council. Every world, every species, every voice. The truth must be known. Varthus gave a sharp nod. Let them hear. Let them choose. The human and Kether ships linked their systems. A single broadcast spread through the stars, reaching colonies, outposts, hidden worlds. The visions poured out again, humans fighting, shadows burning, the prison cracking open, the truth no council could hide. And across the galaxy, countless beings looked up at the stars and felt fear, but also something more, hope. Because if fragile, broken humans had stood against this darkness once before, perhaps they could do so again. The shadow swarm moved closer, their ships blotting out the stars. The two captains stood ready, side by side. Varthus whispered, his voice almost reverent, "This is madness." Ward's eyes never left the dark horizon. This is war. The shadows roared. The two ships dove forward. The galaxy's final story began.